We've said it once and we'll say it again and again. At the end of the day, every knee shall bow, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Can I hear an amen? It says all nations, not the Jews, not the Gentiles, not the Latinos, not the Asians, not the blacks, but that all nations will gather in his presence. And there at that gathering, there will be those that believed, and there will be those that didn't believe. I'm afraid to say that perhaps the group of unbelievers will be much greater than that of those that believed. I say that because when Jesus Christ tells us to believe, he means more than just a thought. He wants us to adhere to him, to obey him. And we do this by placing him first in our lives. By loving him with all our hearts, with all our mind, with all our being, and with effort, with all our strength. We do this by loving our neighbor as ourselves. He's not asking for us to love anyone more than we love ourselves. He is simply saying that we should love others as we love ourselves. That at no point in time should we love ourselves more than we love others. That is why the path of righteousness is such a straight and narrow path. It says here that he will separate his people into those that are the sheep, the believers, and the goats, the unbelievers. It follows with 34 and 35 and 36. Then the king will say to those on his right, the believers, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, I didn't fit in, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Sometimes I hear people say that they don't know exactly what they're supposed to do in ministry. That they don't know what their calling is. The calling of every Christian, of every person who considers himself or herself a child of God, is to feed the hungry, to give a drink to those who are thirsty, to befriend those who feel left out, those who have been perhaps cast out because they're not normal in the eyes of those who think they're normal. To clothe the naked, to tend to the needs of those who are sick. and to give hope to those in prison, whether in a actual physical prison, perhaps imprisoned by sin, to give hope to all those that are in prison and imprisoned. That is each and every one of our callings. Look no further. Any calling that does not adhere to what we just read is not a calling. Whether we sweep the church, whether we preach, whether we take care of audio visuals, whether we deal with graphic design, whether we do the cooking, whether we do the calling, we all have different jobs. But our foundation as Christians is to feed the hungry, is to care for those that are less fortunate, is to spread the good news of Jesus Christ to all those who still find themselves lost. 37 through 40. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you something to drink? Or a stranger and show you hospitality? Or naked and gave you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visiting you? And the King, our Father, will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. What I find so beautiful about those verses is that those who are righteous will do things simply because it is right and simply because it is pleasing to God. Notice how these righteous ones didn't even know that the good that they were doing was for this greater benefiting to themselves, for this greater cause. They did it simply because they knew that that's what Jesus would do. They did it simply because that's what we were created to do in the first place. And so they did it, and they didn't give it any thought. And Jesus here had to remind them that these things and these wonderful things, these gestures that they did to these others less fortunate, was actually done unto him. Sometimes what we do or what we don't do is pleasing to God. It's not about everything that you do. Sometimes it's about what you don't do, what you don't allow others to talk you into, that is pleasing to God. Sometimes being still, not moving, awaiting an answer from God is more pleasing to God than doing so many other things.